Everybody, I'm going to just go over the basics of how to lay out your midterm in InDesign. And there's a couple things I just want to go over prior to that. And number one is you should create a folder. So you can see here I've created a folder called Neighborhood Analysis Midterm, and then put JPEGs of all your maps, images, drawings that you're going to use in InDesign in that one folder. Because what InDesign does is when you place something into InDesign, it remembers the the path location, the file location, and it has the pathing system. And it'll always, every time you open InDesign, it goes back and retrieves that JPEG. The beauty of that is that when, like, say you need to update something, so like say I need to update my Illustrator like lynch map, I'll go fix my Illustrator lynch map. I'll save it as a JPEG and save it with the same exact name in the same location. So I'll save my new one over my old one, and it'll automatically update in InDesign. So you don't have to replace it or anything. InDesign will just go look for that file. So, as a starter, put everything that you need in there. And I would also have your text potentially written out in Word document, right? So all your analysis for your lynch map, your your assets and liabilities list, your list of stakeholders, the analysis of your existing land use maps, have all of that written out and well thought through and in a Word document in this same folder. Then you can open up that Word document and copy and paste your text into InDesign. So that's step one. Step two is just to remember, so on Blackboard, I've placed everything in the project resources folder, including the midterm examples that I gave you and the Circle North Going Places plan. And I'm also going to put the St. Clair Superior example in there as well. So all the resources you need are in here. The year built parcel map is in here if you want to do that for your extra map. So remember where all those are. And then third, I would open up, in Acrobat, the example. So I'm going to change the view here. So we do view, page display, single page view. Oop. Zoom out. Okay, so here's the one example. And again, just review these. If you haven't already, you should have by now. But if you haven't, he's got his lynch analysis, his hand-drawn map, and his lynch map that was drawn in Illustrator. He has a legend here with what all the symbols are in his map and what they mean. And then he has his analysis of it written here. He's got his land use map with all the land uses together and a legend showing that. And then he's got each individual land use broken out separately with an analysis and text underneath it. He has his morphology map, so he has his neighborhood in 1930, and then he has his neighborhood as it looked in 2016, and he has the text written out here. Down at the bottom here, he's got his street section. He's got everything drawn out with the dimensions of each section of the street, the names of them, and then he has an analysis of that below here. He's got a list of his stakeholders, a list of his assets and liabilities, and he has his takeaways, his 3 takeaways here. For his extra map, he did a food accessibility map with his text written here, his analysis of that, and then his legend, and he has some images that he put in as well as an aerial map that shows the neighborhood he was looking at highlighted in red. He's got his title for his midterm right here. Here's the Coventry one. She has her title up at the top, and both of them just organized it simply, right? Like they laid out rectangles of space that they would need for each of their maps. They sized everything accordingly, and they just have simple titles with a line under them, right? And they used a certain color palette. His color palette had kind of this black and sort of maroonish type red with a very simple text here, and there's the hierarchy to the text, right? When I look at his, I can easily see the title because it's big and it's stretched out tall, and it's got a little bit of subtext here telling me what it is, and then I can see his black lines with his bold sans serif text as titles to each section. She did something similar here. She's got a darker color and it's big again for her title. She's got her name underneath here, which he should have had but didn't. So make sure you put your name on it. She has her titles for each section, larger. So again, there's this hierarchy between like I see this first, it's biggest, then I see this, and then I can go into that section and read it. And then she has, the different parts of her analysis. She bolded the first word so I know, oh, I'm reading about a node. So make sure you're thinking about hierarchy as you put your text in. She has her assets and liabilities, her takeaways. For her special or different maps, she did like historic districts. So she talked about those historic districts and showed them on the map. And she has her street section here with her analysis, her Lynch analysis. And then for her stakeholders, she got the logos. So she found the logos for each of these stakeholders online, and she put them up at the top. So she kind of treated them as if they were partners in this project that she was doing. Also, this is the year built map that you could use to create an extra map. So I have this open. You could zoom in on your neighborhood, use this legend, and recreate this map just for your neighborhood if that is suitable for your extra map. And then I have the going places plan open. You should have read through all this stuff already and kind of reviewed this to really understand how what analysis looks like. Let's go. But you can go back into here. One of the extra maps that's easy to do is a block map, right? So you can go into Google Earth and you can measure the widths the widths and lengths of your blocks, and you can use this same exact description to divide your blocks into walkable all the way to blocks that are really barriers to the neighborhood. And you can show this analysis simply by using the layer that you have for blocks in Photoshop and coloring in the 4 different types of blocks and creating a legend for it, and you have a really good, useful extra map that will be very useful in your analysis and your plan moving forward. So have those open to refer to. Now I'm going to open up InDesign. So this is going to be similar to what I showed you when we did the existing land use. So you're going to go and create a new file, and you're going to create a document. So change picas to inches, and yours is going to be 24 by 36. You can do it landscape or portrait. I'm going to do mine landscape. Okay, so now I have a 24 by 36 sheet to work from. I can have layers here that I can add. And the first thing I'm going to do is you can use your guides to kind of lay out different sections, right? So if I know that I have, I need a street section, a section for that. I need a Lynch map section. I need a section for my existing land use. I need a section for like my extra map. And then I need, and then see if I go, oh, what else do I need? You can either go to the list that's on Blackboard, right? Or you can look at one of the examples and say, okay, my existing land use, my morphology, my extra map, my Lynch analysis, my street section, and then I need 2 smaller sections probably for my assets and liabilities, my takeaways, and my stakeholders. So that's about 8 sections I need to divide this into. Thinking back to the way when we were talking about composition, you know, the dividing it into thirds actually creates 9 sections. So if I divide it into thirds just to start, so I know this is 36 inches wide, right? So that divided by thirds puts me at 12 inches. So I can start by dividing my board into thirds. Right, so I've got some structure started here. And I'm going to give myself a title block, and I'm going to put it at the top. So I'm going to start just by, and I can go back. Don't worry about placing everything perfect in the beginning. Just place stuff in there, and then you can modify it later. But I'm going to go ahead and create my title block at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some color to do that. So I'm going to go create a shape, right? Use the rectangle tool. I need some color here. So let's just say that, I found a green. I put an RGB value in, that was within my color palette, and I say okay. And then I can create, so you can use shapes to kind of enhance your your presentation. And then I'm going to put some text in, and I'm going to call this, going. If I need something that I, like my windows to help modify like the selections on my tools, I can go into window and go to the appropriate, open up the appropriate window. So I'm going to select, a font that I like. I like Montserrat. Let's see if it's in here. Okay, and I'm gonna, make it big enough so it's good for a title. And I'm gonna, stretch it out because it looks nice when it's stretched out. And I'll call it circle. Oops. North. And actually, maybe I'll stretch it out and make it bigger than that. So I'm gonna just type in here. See 100 and see what that looks like, and I'm going to stretch it out by like 200. So that's the kerning, the space in between the letters. Circle north, and then I'll type in lowercase and analysis, right? This little plus, when you see that, that means that there's something outside of your window. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stretch that window so the rest of my text shows. And this I'm going to change. I'm going to change the size down to like maybe half of the size of what's there. And maybe I'll change the kerning to be like 100. Whatever. This is not perfect. This is just showing you how to do it, but starting to think about hierarchy and stuff. And then if I want to maybe put a line in there in order to like make some, like give it some other sort of decorative or, to help define spaces, I can draw a line using that line tool. And just like in Illustrator, I can go to stroke and I can then open up this and I can, modify the width of that line. And then I'm going to start placing things, right? So everything that I place in here, file, place, I'm going to go to that one folder where I have everything saved so that it's going to always know where to look and everything's going to be in the same place. And I'm not going to be going into like 10 different folders to try to find what I want to put in there. So I know everything's in the same place. So I'll do, we'll start with the lynch map because I want to show you something else. So I'm going to put my lynch map in here. And if I click once, it does it the size that it was, but I don't want it to be that size, so I can either grab, and while the line's blue, remember when it's blue, what it does is it crops. So it's kind of like I'm looking through a window at my lynch map, and the blue is the window. If I hold down the Command key, it'll change the size of it. If I hold down Command and Shift, then it will keep it proportional, right? So there I have my lynch map. I'm going to crop this because I've got some extra little garbage there on the end so it looks nice and white. Now I want to put my hand-drawn lynch map in here. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to File, Place. I'm going to go find my hand lynch-drawn map, and I'm going to open it. I'm going to place it here. And if I hold, I can make it. Oh, that's not the same size. Oh, but I look and I'm like, oh, look, I took a picture of it and I tried to do it in natural light, but it looks so blue. I don't want it to look like that. I want it to have white in the background. So how do I do that? So you can go into Photoshop and you can open up the picture that you took of your lynch map, and you can adjust things in here. So I'm going to get rid of extras. So I'm going to double click so that it lets me modify this layer because it calls it background all the time and it's locked, so I'm unlocking it. I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and I'm going to try brightness. I can do brightness, right, to try and get that blue out. Click OK. If some of you have like more cream color, try to do the brightness. You can also then use your magic wand tool. Pay attention to the tolerance up here, but I can click on that and it gets pretty much everything, and I can delete that. So now I'm deleting all the white parts, which are not going to look. The reason why I'm deleting them, I got rid of, they're so light, but I'm deleting them because when I put this into InDesign, that white is not going to be the exact same white that the background of my InDesign is, which is like a, I don't know, perfect white. But there's 1,000 different versions of white. As you know, if you've ever purchased paint to paint a room and you want white, they've got like various different shades of cream, and they give them all different kinds of names and so on and so forth. So I'm going to do that so that my map is nice and clean. So I'm going to do File, Save As. Now I could flatten it, like I could layer, flatten, so that it's got that pure white, and then do File, Save As, and save it as a JPEG. And I'm just going to save it over the one that was there. So here's, lynch map, hand drawn. It's got, you can see the blue there. I'm just going to save it over that. And it says replace it. Yep, replace it. Somewhere around, maybe a megabyte or so. Now see this little exclamation point comes up. That means that, oh, it needs to be, reloaded. So I just double click on that and it reloads it. And that blue is gone. And now I want to just kind of size it. I'm going to crop it a little bit. And it looks like I need to rotate it. So, I can go to the edge here. If I hold down Shift, it'll do it to 90 degrees. And then I'm going to rotate it. And then also scale it. So I'm going to hold down Control or Command, and then also the Shift key. And try to make it about the same exact size as what I have drawn there. So now I have my lynch maps in there. And again, don't freak out like worrying about placing everything perfectly right now at the moment, because I can go back later and I can adjust the size of these if I need more room for other stuff on my board. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a legend and also space for my text. So I'm going to go in, I'm zooming in so we can see this better. And I need a red circle. I need these red dots. I need this green star. There's a couple ways to do this, right? I can use the shape tools here. So if I go here and I go to the ellipse tool, I can use the shift key to create a perfect red circle or a perfect circle. And then I can change the color of this to match. So I can use the eyedropper tool. I can get this red, right? And then that changed my circle to that red. And then if I go to the stroke window, I can manipulate that line so that it's got a thickness that's similar to what's in there. So now I have a red circle that matches this red circle. I need this star. Let's see what I got here. I got a polygon tool. So hold down shift. First I'm going to delete that. That's not working. So I'm going to use this pen tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to trace this shape. And again, Control or Command Z is undo if you need to undo. And I could have created these in InDesign, just like I did when I created these stars. So I showed you how in InDesign you can create stars, and with the plus or minus key, make them 5, 6, 7, 8, 9-pointed stars, whatever. Obviously that doesn't work in InDesign, so I'm figuring a way around it, right? Using the base knowledge I have, and the tools that are available to me, I'm trying to figure out ways around this. So now I want it to be this green, so I'm gonna use my selector tool, create that green. So now I've got the star. If I want to put both different kinds of stars on here, I could do Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V, and then I can just do that, and I got a solid, click on here to switch from the outline to the fill. So now I have my two different kinds of stars. Now I need my my district. So let's see. And my district doesn't need to look exactly like my district. If I let's see. So make sure if you're seeing what I did, like I was on the outline, not on the fill, and I want the fill to match. So I had to make sure I was on the fill, go back to eyedropper, and now it's the same thing. This could potentially be like a square that just indicates that anything that's that color, is the district. And then for my dots, I can again go and make some dots and make sure that they are the right color and that they're big enough to be seen. I want let's try this again. I'm going to start with this. Okay. Oh, no wonder why I'm clicking on the wrong thing. See, the eyedropper had some black in it, so it was filled with the color already, which is why I wasn't able to refill it without going back to the eyedropper tool, re-clicking it to empty it, and then go back and get the color I want. Now I can do Control C, Control V, or Command C, Command V and then, you know, get a bunch of these circles. I'll click both of them and do Control or Command C and Control or Command V, you know, and just get enough of them in a line so I can, you know, indicate that, you know, what this is, my edge. And then if I go to Window and go to, let's see, arrange, right? So let's see if this works. I can tile all horizontally. Did not work. Here it is, align. So under object and layout, right? So now I can select these. I can space them evenly, and then I can align them. And then if they don't look like they're the right spacing apart like here, I'll just grab these three and I'll move them closer, because really all that matters is the distance between the two farthest ones. That's how it spaces them. So that looks better. And if I want, you know, I can rotate this. And then what I can do is just go make sure I'm on black. If I'm using black, you can use whatever color you want for your type tool. And then create a box, you know, and call this node. And I do not like that font. So I'm going to go to my Montserrat. And then I can adjust my box, you know, so that I've got this going on like this. Center it. Copy and paste using Control C, Control V. You know, make this wider, and then change the name. So on and so forth. So, and you can do this for all your stuff, right? I'm going to do File, Place, and I'll do, you know, here's my morphology map. Obviously that's way too big, so I'm going to scale it. File, Place. I'll do my existing land use, all. Now, I showed you how to do this before. You want all your maps to kind of be the same size, right? For your big maps, you know, they don't have to be, but it just looks better when you're trying to, you know, you're creating hierarchy again on the page, right? So they're about the same size. Again, they don't have to be. So if I decide later that my lynch maps can be smaller, just like, you know, in looking at Rachel's here, her lynch maps are a little bit smaller. Her street section is bigger. And then on his map, you know, he's got his morphology smaller because he wanted to put some images in, which is fine too. And you can place photographs in here just like you did with, you know, with or the photographs that you've taken. You can just, you know, place them in here as JPEG, save them as JPEGs, place them in here. The other thing is, if you want to do something like that aerial map, you could go, let's say I go to, I'm just going to do, just for expediency's sake, I'm going to go to Google Maps, and I'm going to just find an aerial of my neighborhood. So here's my neighborhood. I'm going to turn satellite on, and let's just say I turn all the other stuff off. I zoom in so it's about the right distance, and let's just say I take a screenshot of my neighborhood. right? If I go into Photoshop and I open that screenshot, I could do a number of things with this. First, I could modify. There's lots of ways to modify, right? I could go mode. I can change it to grayscale, and it'll get the color out of it if I want it to be black and white like his was, say. And then I could, if I want to do a fade like he did, as long as make sure this isn't locked, I can go into my eraser tool. I can set the opacity down, and it could be 50%, 20%. You'll play with it and you'll see. I can make it a lot bigger, and then I can click. See, that's too much. And also, what that shows is, see how there's this strong line there? I don't want that strong line. I want it to be faded. So I'm going to do hardness down to 0. I'm going to click once and click twice down here, and I start to create a fade. And then I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And again, click in the same part, because I want this to be white on the left end here so that it's completely gone, so it'll fade nice. And I'm going to click again and click down again. What I can do, just so I can see how faded it is, I can create another layer, put it at the bottom, get some white paint, and I can drop the white paint on the layer below so I can see when I get to that point where this is all faded away. So I can go to my eraser again. Oops, make sure I'm on the right layer. And then I can keep erasing until I have a white edge. And then I can do layer, flatten image, file, save it as a JPEG, and put it in my folder where I have everything, and just I'll call it like my location map. If I want to do like Joshua did and put like a color over the location. And when I get back in here, I could do file, place, go find my location map. And I'm going to maybe size it to this whole sort of length there. On my layers, so I'm going to go to Windows, Layers, open this up, and move my location map down to the bottom so it's behind the other things. If I do view, so right now I have overprint preview on. Last time people were like, oh my gosh, it's looking blurry. If it looks blurry, it's because you don't have overprint preview on. So I'm going to shut it off so you can see if it'll shut it off. Well, it's not going blurry, but if you have blurry on, just, if your images look blurry, just make sure you have overprint preview on, and it'll show it nice and clear. Just uses more memory. If you need to save memory. Now, see, look, I can look in here and see like, oh, I didn't erase enough of that. So this white's showing. And then another thing I need to consider is like, well, I have a white background to this. If I want to place this over this, what I can do is I can open up this map in Photoshop. So for example, I can go to Photoshop. I'm going to do File, Open. I'm going to open up my existing land use JPEG, and I'm going to double click so I can edit it. Since it's all white, I can just delete the white easy, go delete. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to save it as a Photoshop file. So I'm going to save this as existing land use as a Photoshop file in that my neighborhood analysis midterm folder. Because InDesign, you can import your Photoshop files, you can import Illustrator files into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this map so it's got the blue selection. I'm going to replace it. So I'm going to click place while this is selected blue. And then I'm going to select that Photoshop file I just made. and it'll replace it. And because in Photoshop that white background's gone, it's also gone here. Right? If I were to flatten it and created a JPEG, it would have put that white back in. So now I have this floaty here, and then I can also go back and modify my location map. So I know that I didn't erase enough, so I'm going to do Command Z or Control Z to get back my 2 layers. And then I'm going to go to the eraser tool, and I'm just going to change the opacity to 100%. So I'm just erasing everything right in the center of that circle where I click. So I'm going to go like this and like this. Make sure I get all of that erased. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did with my existing land use map. I'm going to delete that bottom layer and just let the checkerboard show through. And I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file. Oops, did not want to do that. But I can just go ahead and do it again. File, save as. Photoshop. If I saved it as a PNG, well, let's see. I think if I save it as a PNG, it'll do it too. Save it as a PNG with that space missing. So let's go back to InDesign and see. So I'm selecting my background map, doing File, Place. Let's select that PNG and see what it does. There we go. So now, I've created an effect that adds some interest to my composition. So you can place everything on here. You can use the lines to help create, underlines for your titles, right? So I might go back to my lynch map, go to my selector tool. I'm going to move all this down a little bit, select everything, and just kind of use the arrow tool to give myself a little bit more space up the top here. And then maybe, I'll use my line tool. And I'm going to, I can use guides to say, okay, I want my lines to go from the edge here, out to say 10 inches from the left end. Actually, and then I'm going to make some more space here, so I'm going to move these over. Oops, see that one turned red, so it actually moved it on the inside. So I'm going to go ahead and select them again. Make sure they're both blue. I may as well select all this with it. Move these over to give myself some more room. Then I'm going to draw a line from here. You got to click and hold to draw the line. Maybe I'll stop it there. And give it some color. And I think I want to give it, I don't know, I'm just going to play around with it. Maybe I want to make it green. And then I'm going to make sure that I can find my stroke window. Make that a thicker line. And then maybe I'm going to use black for my text, and I'm going to create a text box and call it, that's way too small, so I'm going to make sure I go to my character tool. I hate Minion Pro, so I'm going to go to the font that I'm using, and I'm going to make it bigger. Let's see, 48. And call it Lynch. I might have made it too big for my window. Let's try this again. Okay, let's start over. I'm going to delete that one and start over again. Obviously, I made it too big. So I'm going to, let's try 18 to start with. I'll do Lynch, map, analysis. Now that looks too small. It's not a good hierarchy between my title and then what's in my legend here. So I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger. That looks maybe good. You know, I could jostle it up and down. There we go. Now, if you don't see your blue line, you know, the blue sort of window around what you've placed in there, you're getting kind of like a view. I can hide. Okay, so here, I can lock my guides, view. I can hide my guides so they disappear and I can see, you know, my composition as I'm working on it. And then I can, here's hide frame edges, right? View, show frame edges. If I shut off there, if I shut off my overprint preview, now I can see my windows again. So I know what I'm working with. But that's how you can go back and forth and you can see what your, you know, what your composition is looking like, where things actually are. Then what I'm going to do is, you know, I want to line this up so that my text kind of fits between here and here. Say I'm going to create a text box. I'm going to create the big whole text box and just write my text in there. Now, if I had all my analysis written in Word, I can copy it from Word. I can go back into InDesign and I can hit paste and all my text will show up in here. If it doesn't, like say I didn't write it yet, which I hope you guys did write it. Most of you have written it from what I've seen. So I can go back in here and then I can do node. I'm going to make this, since it's like the title, I'm going to make it bold. Got to go to window and do, let's see if that offers in paragraph. Nope. I think what I need to do here is, oh yeah, here we go. And character, here it is, bold. Okay, so that's bold. And then I'm going to go back to, maybe, I don't know, maybe I wanted to use light. And then I'm going to do, you know, my text. The nodes in my neighborhood, you know, whatever your text is. So then start writing your text in and fill up this whole space. And again, just be cognizant of your overall composition. So what does it look like with my text kind of going down to the bottom of, you know, my lynch, and then I have my lynch map analysis here. So this should be a pretty good tutorial to get you started and allow you to do some different things. And you know, you're going to learn more as the semester goes on. So do your best. The last thing I wanted to put into your head was, you know, besides the, you know, reading the stuff that I gave you to look through, that's really going to give you a lot of information. In fact, I want to see if I had, here it is. I'm going to move this Upcycling St. Clair into the project resources folder, so you also have that, which really goes a long way in explaining how to come up and with what your outcomes are, like what are the problems in your neighborhood, the 3 outcomes that you're supposed to have. So make sure that you look at that, you know, or takeaways, outcomes, takeaways. I was calling them takeaways before, so maybe use takeaways as the titles. So that helps a lot with that. And then the other thing I wanted you to just keep in mind is always be looking. You know, when you think of all the great artists, architects, planners, whatever in the world, you know, very, very rarely, if ever, does anybody ever come up with anything all on their own. You know, one artist builds upon what was done before him, and then that artist before him built upon what was done before him. So don't be afraid to like go out and look for inspiration, Pinterest is a great place. I just typed in urban planning boards, and you can see here all these beautiful boards that have great ideas. Don't freak out and try to do too much before Wednesday, but keep this in mind as we're moving through the rest of the semester for what your final board will look like. There's all kinds of great ideas here, and if there's something that you really like and you want to emulate that style, just ask me and I'll help you do it. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff through Zoom for the rest of the semester. I can do one-on-ones with you guys, and you can, we can figure out how to get the look that you want. So this is a really cool looking board. Maybe I got to go. Here we go. Let's try this. It's in Russia. I don't know if I should be going to Russia, but anyways. So, this is a really great site analysis board. But point is, just go into Pinterest, go into Google Map or Google search images, and find some stuff that you like, thinking about the future. But for Wednesday, just get your board put together and get it nice looking and organized and put all the information you need on it. Again, if you go back into Blackboard, you'll see on the home page in the projects folder a reminder here with this neighborhood analysis midterm project, what this is. Ignore you'll bring a full-scale print because we're not going to be meeting in person, so obviously you're going to submit it as a PDF, so save it as an RGB and submit it as a PDF here on Blackboard, and we'll be good. Okay, so I hope that helps. You guys can email me, text me, whatever, for any help you need, and I will make myself available for you, okay? So good luck. You guys are doing great.